I rise to make a valedictory speech, and I had to look up what that kind of was, particularly for Parliament. A valedictory is an act of parting company, a speech made when parting company and designed or suitable for bidding farewell and parting company. So while I think we will part company in some ways today, I'm not sure that this will be the last you see of me. I came into this place almost 16 years ago, back in 2010. On that occasion, Kevin Rudd was Prime Minister. In fact, Kevin Rudd was pretty much king. The Kevin 07 juggernaut had been quite successful. He was replaced by Julia Gillard that year, and I certainly remember the very long night in the members' bar as we awaited, like the rest of the country, the news of who our new Prime Minister was to be. In 2010, Taylor Swift won 4 Grammys for Fearless, and she dropped one of them, but she caught it just before it hit the ground. Justin Bieber was top of the pops with Baby. I still had an active MySpace account. I do still have that MySpace account, I just don't know how to access it. Facebook was the heir apparent in social media. Indeed, Facebook was huge. Instagram was launched. The iPad was released that year. And in this chamber, myself, the Honourable Jing Lee and the Honourable Kelly Vincent came in as the 3 new women members of this place, changing markedly the gender composition of this place. At one stage in my early years, there was only one woman on the benches of the Labor Party in this place, and that was, of course, the Honourable Gago, the Minister at the time, who did all of the portfolios and all of the work, and was the sole woman on the front bench, or indeed in your government ranks. Myself, the Honourable Jing Lee, came in together and I think very much feminised the place at the time. I remember well my daughter, who isn't with us today because she doesn't actually really enjoy coming into Parliament, being a toddler at the time and trying to push through that gate while I was doing my maiden speech. And after that, I just kept this particular whole ground floor away from her knowledge because she would have run onto the floor any time I was here as a young toddler. I'm so glad now that yesterday the Honourable Laura Henderson was not only able to bring her infant child into this place, but actually sat in the President's chair, Mr President, and was able to chair the meeting with her young son, because we now have facilitated that under our standing orders. Another thing that Millicent, however, did do was she changed the nature of this place in terms of family friendliness. On her first week in this place, we had the Honourable Kelly Vincent, and many amendments needed to be made. In fact, just right here, next to where I sit now, Kelly had her place in the chamber, and it had to be retrofitted to suit her. At the time, my daughter was toilet training and she loved the bathroom. She was very proud she could go to the toilet. She was about 18 months old. But down in the blue room one day, she threw herself to the floor, screaming, "I just want to go to the toilet." And in front of, though, the then President, Bob Sneath, and the then Clerk, Jan Davis, both of whom were horrified that there might be more bad media on this Parliament not being child-friendly, looked at me and said, "Oh, do we need change tables?" And I went, "No, yes, we do." Of course, my child did not need a change table. However, my child created change tables on every floor of this building, which were installed within the next week, and those koala care change facilities that you now see were there because of my child and her tantrum on the floor of the blue room. Constituents who thanked me for that in those early years included some of my favourite constituents, one who was a family, Terry and Joe and their daughter Maddie. And my second bill in this place that passed both Houses of Parliament was to recognise same-sex parents on their birth certificate. And that could have been well called Maddie's Law. Maddie was well known in these corridors. That family lobbied on many rainbow family reforms as part of the Let's Get Equal campaign and others, but Joe and Terry are now on Maddie's birth certificate because of our work back then in 2010, 2011. Maddie enjoyed the change tables and Joe and Terry thanked me because they'd always had to change Maddie on the floor of the corridors prior to that, and we'd made a small accommodation for people who come into this building, not just for those of us who work here. Maddie, I saw on Facebook this week, has graduated from high school and she is 18. So these things are quite a while ago, but they're still in her lifetime, and I can't believe that we have to fight for what are small accommodations to include all of our community. But that is why we are here in Parliament. We are here for purpose, we are here for passion, and we are here to change the world and reflect our constituents. We of course don't always agree, and I certainly do respect the views of others, and note that this is a difficult workplace, that we are in a workplace where we are here to be adversarial, we are here to put a contest of ideas, and that the institutions of democracy must be upheld if we are to do that in a way that does not see our democracy fail. Something that has changed since 2010 is the threat to democracy and the threat to our institutions. We are seeing post-truth politics. We are seeing the fall of media and their ability to ensure that we have transparency and proper accountability. Not clickbait journalism, but real journalism. Investigative journalism, of course, as we probably all well know in this building, is a thing of the past. When I first started, I was told that a bingo at a press conference was if you got every single news channel to turn up to your press conference. Back then, it was ABC, SBS, 7, 9, 10 and 2. Maybe Sky, if you were lucky, and that was at the time Stacey Lee. Now a bingo can be one journalist, well actually one camera operator turning up and no journalists whatsoever. That is the poor state of the media, the fourth pillar that we currently have in this new society, where social media is king and where media, in terms of mainstream and traditional legacy media, has definitely fallen on hard times as they try to make a way that they can make money out of the job that they do. And that job is incredibly important. And I do want to reflect on that because I think, I'm not sure what the solution is there, but we are much poorer for it with our democracy unless we see those institutions also strengthened. But without them, it is also beholden on us to ensure that we act with truth and integrity in what we do, to make sure what we bring to this place is well researched, is thoughtful and considered, and does not rely on populist approaches without substance. We should hold ourselves to that account where we cannot be held to that account currently by the media. I have, over my time in this place, had many wins with all sorts of people in terms of law reform. I was just making a note to myself. I have co-sponsored bills with the usual suspects, and certainly former Deputy Premier Susan Close, who was also my current local member, and I, unsurprisingly, as did the Honourable Ian Hunter, co-sponsored a marriage equality bill way back in the day. More surprisingly, I've co-sponsored same-sex parenting legislation with the member for Unley, David Pizzoni, also honourable. Even more extraordinarily, I have co-sponsored a bill with Michael Pengelly, the former member for Finnis, on free-range eggs, because on Kangaroo Island there were only free-range egg providers. So willingness to work across the aisle and eyes on the prize of the cause has always been something I think I have been able to achieve in this place, and I certainly think that my legislative record of legislative reform, of getting motions up, of getting bills through both houses of the Parliament, not just one, but both houses of the Parliament, will stand the test of time. And they haven't been necessarily on the simple and easy issues. And certainly I'm very proud that I was able to achieve reforms on cancer compensation for firefighters. I'm very proud that I was able to see what will hopefully one day be the social work registration scheme. And while it was controversial in some ways at the time, I'm very proud of my role in instigating an inquiry into a Stolen Generations reparations scheme in this place. And I'm going to share a little secret, which some of you know, but I'll put it on the public record. I put up a bill, it was one of my very first bills in 2010, for a Stolen Generations reparations scheme. I had worked for Senator Natasha Stott-Despoja in the 1990s in the Senate, and I'd been horrified when, after the heady days of the Prime Ministership of Paul Keating, we had seen the Bringing Them Home report rejected under the Howard government. I was shocked and horrified that reconciliation took not just steps backward, but turned right around. I remember a lack of awareness about what the Stolen Generations really were, and a complete denial that they even existed. And Mr. President, you and I worked on an inquiry into the Stolen Generations through the Aboriginal Lands Parliamentary Standing Committee. And I was able to achieve that by referring my bill to that committee by a motion of this House. Now, under the standing orders, which you shall actually read, only 2 houses can actually do a referral to the Aboriginal Lands Parliamentary Standing Committee, and I didn't have actually the motion that I needed to achieve that, but nobody checked the standing orders. The clerk, Jan Davis, at the time said, nobody's going to check them, Tammy, so don't draw it to their attention. Stephen Wade was an absolute champion and said, this is a great idea and the Parliament should be looking at it. And so we had an inquiry, which went over 2 years, through the Aboriginal Lands Parliamentary Standing Committee into a Stolen Generations reparation scheme, where we heard evidence, and first the opposition, the then Marshall-led Liberal opposition, came on board supporting it and taking it as an election promise to the election where they were successful, and then eventually the Labor government came on board. But had you read the fine print, I would never have got that inquiry up whatsoever. But yeah, that is, read the standing orders. I think that was one of my bits of advice. But sometimes it's better to, of course, ask forgiveness than ask for permission and seek that. I also note that many of us in this place cop a lot just for putting our hands up to be a politician, to be a member of this place. And it doesn't matter what our beliefs are, and it doesn't matter what we do. We are simply judged and dehumanised for being politicians. And I was reflecting on this today because I saw an article about new Senator Charlotte Walker, who's a 21-year-old. And it actually was in the Daily Mail, and it, as I say, post-truth politics. And it said, Senator slammed for her expenditure. And it had a red hot go at her in the headline. And then all the comments were like, how dare she be spending public money because she's 21 and, this is outrageous. Who does she think she is? She's never had a real job, blah, blah, blah. I was reading the comments. Then I read the article. Senator Charlotte Walker spends one of the least amounts of her allowance in the entire country in the Senate. Was actually the substance of the article, had anyone cared to read it. None of the people who made comments read it, of course. They all judged her on her age and made assumptions about her life experience, and we all in this place know what that's like, whether it's that we don't fit whatever somebody thinks we should be doing or saying or thinking or believing, and then we get judged unfairly and misrepresented. That's something that I won't miss at all. I won't miss the public life where you can't control what people think about you. The thing is, you never can control what people think about you. And it is actually not that important, but it gets to us, and I know it gets to everyone at times, particularly when it's deeply unfair. And I wish Charlotte Walker all the best, because I saw it with Natasha Stott-Despoja, and I wouldn't be involved in politics without the leadership of Natasha Stott-Despoja, and I know she's listening and watching. She can't be here today because she's not in South Australia, but she is the one who gave me a chance and gave me a job, and I never thought I would actually work in politics, except she rang me up one day and said, I've just filled the casual vacancy, want to come and work for me? And for 5 interesting years, I was her higher education and youth affairs advisor, and that was quite a wild ride. But she was judged for who people thought she was, that she was too young, that she couldn't possibly have anything to contribute because what life experience could she have? And as we know, that is not necessarily the measure by which we should be judged, and it is certainly not known to any human what another human being knows, does, thinks, and is going through at any particular time. I say to everyone, don't read the comments. But I also say, please read the actual articles. And maybe if we had less paywalls, that might happen a bit more. But any time in the near future, I'm not sure that that's going to happen. I think we are in a situation where democracy is in peril unless we start to ensure civil education and civics, and I think a strong civil society. And I think the leadership of Premier Malinowskis on this is incredibly inspiring. I hope that his investment in early education, civics education, will start to turn the ship around here in South Australia. But we are nowhere near having strong democracies when you look at the international studies into democracy and the lack of faith that young generations have. They are cynical, and understandably so, and they are not trusting of democracy. And I think that that is something that we should all work together across party lines to ensure that we turn around, and I commend the leadership of the Malinowskis government for that. I got my own bingo this week, which is last sitting week, a long-held cause for me, and members are not going to be surprised. I've long advocated for the decriminalisation of sex work in this state, unsuccessfully. Still haven't got there. But I held a forum because a motion to refer that off to the SA Law Reform Institute for a report on the decriminalisation of sex work in this state and legislative models for that to happen passed the Parliament in the late hours of the previous sitting week. I held a forum with members who I hope to pass the baton upon over to, and also sex workers themselves and their advocates who walk alongside them earlier this week. I also have a bill, which I think will be the last bill to go to a debate today, possibly ending the year, to legalise cannabis. I'm reasonably sure I don't have the numbers. I'm reasonably sure it's going to fail. But on a more successful note, today I tabled in this place on Oz Music Day a live music and creative venues report where myself, the Honourable Ben Hood, the Honourable Reggie Martin and the Honourable Frank Pangolo, right across the political spectrum, have made really good recommendations, I think, that will ensure we don't see situations like losing the Crown and Anchor being on the books, and that we restore our live music scene, not just for the musicians, but for the punters and for the good it can do in our community and for our mental health as well. And I hope that that report won't sit on a shelf and gather dust. I do hope that it will be put into action. So my bingo this week was I did sex, drugs and rock and roll in the Parliament. And I've been wanting to say that all week. It was quite an achievement, and I didn't think it was going to happen, but we had joked in my staff team that it was a possibility that they all might come together for this final week. I want to thank those members who I've worked with over the years on various issues. I know that we're all here to create better lives for our constituents, and for those in particular who can put aside the political differences to do so. I just really appreciate the effort that everyone puts in, the time that you all give up that should be spent with your families or doing things you actually would rather be doing, but you put in the grind and you work the long hours and you dedicate yourselves to what is a cause of democracy, and so salute to you all for that. You have my eternal respect, and I probably look forward to every once in a while dipping in to see what you're doing, but without having any investment in it whatsoever. That might be quite fun. I also particularly want to thank my friends and family, some of whom come today, some of whom I've met through politics, and some of whom I haven't, and some of whom are family. And when I first started this job in 2010, I didn't have much family here actually. I had my daughter, who was still the one throwing herself to the floor in the blue room. My mother doesn't live in South Australia, she lives in this state, and she came over for that speech, but she's not here today, and she's living in rural New South Wales now, and quite far away and difficult to get to because regional rail does not exist to the town of Nyngan, due to the floods that washed away the train tracks. But anyway, but I do have my aunt and uncle, my aunt Roma Gorringe and my uncle Brian Gorringe, who have retired to South Australia, which was a delightful surprise for me to have family in this place. And I actually know that they have a connection with the Honourable Laura Henderson and her family from Riyadh days, which will probably surprise many people. Laura, didn't surprise you and I because we met at a Christmas function many, many years ago and well before your election. I'm really thrilled that you could join me today. I'm also amazed that my friend Sergei turned up on time. I have never seen Sergei ever in my life turn up on time. So I was really surprised before when he was 15 minutes early. People like Emma Webb are sitting behind me, and they've been an enormous amount of support to me over many years. But, I mean, again, Emma Webb and I were once mortal enemies in the political field. Back in the student politics days, when, of course, the left can always fight against itself. But then when you grow up, you realise you've got a lot more in common than you do in difference. And she is one of my best friends, and I thank her for everything that she's done, particularly in the last few years. But she is an icon. She has an Order of Australia medal for her service to the arts and the community, and she's done such enormous, amazing work for working people and for arts in this state, and I just absolutely admire her, but I thank her for being here today. I also note that, you know, friends such as Deb Thorson, Dom Heaney, Michelle and Erin and Craig, who can't be here at the moment, my quiz night team, who with Emma finally won a quiz night last week, but we hope to win many more in the future, have just been really good friends away from politics and aside from politics, who don't necessarily understand politics, but that's actually quite a good thing. And I really thank them for being here today and showing their support. Danica Moores, who's been around for many, many years, who is an absolute icon and a legend, is also here. And I just want to thank her for not just her friendship, but also everything that she does as well. Martine Hawkes too is on my list. And then I wanted to move to the unlikely allies. So Bruce Jeté, of course, is here, and Mark Carroll, and Ian Horn sends his apologies. Such is the nature of this place. You may have many disagreements on many issues, but you can always find something to agree with on and work towards progress on. And so particularly Ian Horn, I want to say, when he was the head of the evil empire and David Penberthy was having a red hot go at him as the head of the AHA, he and I did a power of work on live music. And around that time we saw a Weatherall government investment and attention to live music that I hope to see again under the Malinauskas government. And Ian Horn and I actually found that we had a lot more in common than we did in difference. Similarly, you wouldn't expect somebody who was the former head of the police union to be here for my valedictory, but I thank him. And he was an incredible support at times over the past few years. And we found that, of course, we agree on workers' rights. And we worked really hard on workers' compensation and workers' rights, while we will always disagree on the police complaints and discipline authority lack of transparency, and I will not give that one up. But we just won't talk about it in polite company. Bruce, of course, is, again, a legend, and I've gotten to know him as a friend, and I respect everything he does, but I don't agree with hardly any of it. So here we are. My staff, James Dannenberg, who's been with me since 2010, went off to other bigger and better things, worked in WA for a while for various Greens MPs, is back with us. Michael Donato, Monty, Bell, Tina and Joanna Wells and Kieran Snape. I gave them shout-outs yesterday, Mr President, as I think you're aware, with Taylor Swift lyrics and eras. And I hope they appreciated that, but I hope they understand how much I appreciate them. They have been absolutely stalwart in what have been reasonably difficult times in the last year. And I just couldn't have done it for the last few months without them, and so I thank them for everything, and I hope that they go on to bigger and better things. And Monty and Joanna and Kieran in particular, I hope they end up as elected representatives in parliaments. I think they would add so much to parliaments, and I obviously know that Kieran Snape is currently Deputy Lord Mayor, but people might be aware he's running as an independent for the City of Adelaide. I hope that he has great success with his political endeavours. I've watched him grow and blossom from a young man who had great ambitions to someone who is keenly able to listen to those who don't agree with him and work with them and work through things, and again shows up, is diligent, turns up to the events, takes on board criticism, and then serves his community. And it might not even be what he believes necessarily is best, but if it is best for his community, he is willing to do that hard work, and so I commend him for that. Joanna Wells and Monty, of course, polled incredibly well in the federal election for the seats of Boothby and Adelaide respectively, and I hope that they get the chance to live out their political ambitions and goals and dreams in the near future, and I'll be there every step of the way to support them as they do. Finally, I particularly wanted to thank in the gallery today Lisa Chesser, who's a former member for Taylor and a former minister. Lisa has been an outstanding friend ever since 2010, and that's actually when we first met. We both first came in at the same time. We both had children much the same age at the same school, and did that whole mum and then single mum thing together through this place. Lisa has faced adversity and survived it, and is a great example to me that there is life after this place, and has done not just a lot today to wrangle everyone, but so much over the past few years to always be there when I needed it. I'm a single mum in this place, and I spoke about my mother going through domestic violence when I was a child and ongoing in my first speech. In the entire time I've been in this place, I've had a situation where I've been in what you'll call a domestic violence situation of the father of my child, always spewing abuse, always being difficult, and always seeking to destroy me. I will not miss that when my child turns 18, and I don't have to have any connection there, but it is one of the things that I have carried the entire time since 2010 that I've been here. And Mr. President, you, of all of the people in this place, gave me the greatest supports on that. You and I know that you offered me a pair, should I ever need it, with regards to my child. And we had a secret arrangement for a few years when she was really young, and I would have to drop everything at, short notice and manage really difficult family situations. And I thank you for that, and I thank you for your friendship. And also the way that you have been a really considered, thoughtful, and down-to-earth president in this place, using humour rather than power to control and manage this place. I know that I value your friendship, and I know that politics will be different in this place when you leave. I've watched over my years, every time one person leaves, it changes markedly, so I imagine it will change quite a lot without me. I'm not sure if you'll enjoy that or not, perhaps you will. But as the Honourable Kaya Ma once said, in a particular mention of me at the end of a particularly nicer year, I always spent more time on the steps outside than I did in here anyway. So I look forward to being on the steps and seeing you from there, and continuing to advocate for the causes I believe, and holding firm to that. I will get to spend, of course, more time with my family and see my daughter Pippa and my son Geordie and his wife Brooke and their daughter, who is my granddaughter, Peyton, a fair bit more, I hope, and have the flexibility to not be tied to parliamentary duties to do so. I might get to see as well my brother in Queensland a little more, Shane, who's actually been really outstanding support, reaching out when he could see that I was in trouble. And both of us will always deeply miss my brother, Brian, who died by suicide in the time that I was here. And again, I reflect on the kindness that was shown to me by some members of this place when my brother died by suicide during a sitting week. And I again thank my aunt and my uncle for being there through that really difficult time. It's something that you don't want to join the club of, but it is a club that I am a member of, and I do know and acknowledge the work of the Honourable Sarah Game with regards to men's mental health. My brother, I often think, would have loved to have been here today. He's never with us for birthdays, for Christmases or for events like this, but I remember him today. And he was a bit of a poet and a footballer, so an odd assortment in that as well. And I think he would have quite enjoyed some of the sex, drugs and rock and roll fun that I've had this week. I want to conclude by noting that, one of the suffragists for South Australia who was part of women getting the vote, which actually means that I could have been here in the first place, Mary Lee, always said, let's always be leaving this place better than we found it, or let's be up and doing. She was embodied by Steph Key, who was always the one to say onwards and upwards. When she first would say it, it was always in the face of adversity, and I always thought it was a really black humour thing to say. I came to adopt it myself and use it to uplift me as we face these challenges. So onwards and upwards. And to use the Nurrungeri phrase, knackanya. That's my valedictory, that's it.